Hi, welcome to episode 3 of the vlog. Being fully honest, I actually recorded this episode last week on Sunday, and then the audio went weird, and then the visuals went weird, and then I recorded it again, and the audio was still weird. I kind of see things like that as a sign. So I was like, you know what? It's not meant to be today, and that's cool. And I just let it go. And today I got up. It's been cloudy all week, overcast here in Leeds and in the north all week. And then the sun broke today a little bit, the clouds broke. And something in me was like, I want to go to the woods. The inner child that I mentioned last week was like, I just want to go walk in the woods. And I was like, okay, let's go. It's my day. Do my thing. Went for a walk. It was beautiful. Lots of like water everywhere in a nice way and like just gorgeous. I've come home after the walk and my heart went, okay. And I've been thinking about a lot of things. And I was like, it's time to press record. We'll see if this works. But yeah, welcome back. What's happened since I last did a vlog? Well, I did a headline show in Cardiff at a cappella, just outside of Cardiff. And I first played there supporting Tom Robinson at his 2 sold out headline shows there. And I had a really wonderful time. And I got invited back to support the 3 Degrees at the end of last year, which was also an incredible experience. And at the end of that show, they said, you know, we really want you to come and do a solo show here. On the Jungle Child tour last March, I tried to go to Cardiff with the band. And I booked the show in the hopes that if I did a couple of local gigs in the build up to it, I might be able to draw an audience. But all of the local stuff that I had planned just didn't work out. And we didn't make the numbers. And we had really low sales. And it just wasn't feasible to take the whole band there. And that was a really tough call. Everybody was so understanding. People either came to Bristol or got a refund. And, you know, that was like really... It was a really tough time. It's really tough booking your own stuff, promoting your own stuff. You know, it's your life on the line. And I feel really lucky that people were so understanding. But if I'm being honest, it gave me a bit of a feeling of being nervous about going back to Cardiff, having not really done any gigs there, even on a joint headline. The promoter, who is wonderful, the promoter in a cappella, was really great at just kind of alleviating my concerns. And they were like, you know, it's going to be great. Like it's for independent venue week. And it'll be cool. And I was going to be joint headlining with Penbleth, who were a Welsh South Wales band who were incredible, really, really great. And so it was a really wonderful experience. And even more special was that some of the people who obviously had bought tickets for the Jungle Child tour, but sadly that date didn't happen in Cardiff, they'd come to this headline. And it was just really great to see a room full of people in Cardiff. And I was really nervous. I was really conscious that I was doing a solo headline. And I haven't done a solo headline in years. I can't remember when I last did a solo headline. My previous headlines for the past 2 years at least have all been with a band. And I jumped on Zoom with Eric Apapule and he taught me how to play Jungle Child on the acoustic guitar on my own because I've only ever done Jungle Child with the band. And so it's always a little bit sort of jittery feeling. I don't know if nervous is the right word. When you're going to play a song for the first time on your own, or like a new song. For me anyway, my entire set, all I'm thinking about is that song. Like I'm enjoying doing the other songs and I'm really present, don't get me wrong. But every time I finish a song and I strum the last chord, it's like I'm aware that I'm one song closer to the song that I'm going to be playing for the first time. And Jungle Child, I put as like the second to last song in the set. And Jungle Child also has a poem that goes into it. And I was playing for the first time in a different tuning. I normally always play in standard tuning and I was playing in open D for this. So it was all kinds of new and exciting. And I practiced, you know, really, really practiced, but it doesn't change how you feel. You're just like, oh, I really want to get this right. I really want this to pay off. And it did. It went so well. Made a few fluffs, but hopefully only fluffs I noticed. And it was so wonderful. And I got a standing ovation from the audience, which was really amazing and really uplifting. And I just felt on top of the world. It was such a great first gig of the year. I drove back to the hotel and drove home the following day, just riding the waves of the show. And for me, the high from a good show it's with you everywhere you go. I'm smiling just thinking about the show, being honest. It's just no feeling like it. It's just like, yeah, it was great. But actually that show planted a small seed in my mind, which was, why don't I do more headline solo shows? I think, and this is something that I know affects quite a few artists, not just me. Once you start doing gigs with a band, which honestly is just incredible, you kind of talk yourself into the idea that that's now the new high. That's like the new bar, and all of your headline shows, that's the bar, you should be with a band. And that if you were to offer anything but that to people, that they wouldn't come. And that's not about insecurity. That's actually like what we get taught coming up in the industry, is that you should only build. You should never strip back. And the thing is that there are so many artists that counter this over and over again, but it doesn't sink in unless somebody points it out to you, that you can deliver something really great as long as your intention is to deliver something great, whether you've got an orchestra behind you or it's just you and your piano or your guitar or whatever. And I just kept thinking about it. I know so many great artists that do solo headlines. And I think over last year, I've been seeing more and more examples of it. I supported Luke Jackson in Oxted, and he did an incredible hours set on his own, just 2 guitars and a stomper and his just creativity. And he was phenomenal. And I've been seeing more and more artists I love very dearly and have followed and been connected to pretty much since the first day of my career, to an artist called Harley Blue. Hey, Harley. And Harley is an artist who I admire greatly. She's also, like me, fully independent artist. And she did a post last week about being an independent artist and not being able to take your band always on the road with you, and that you should find a way, especially post-COVID, especially with the current sort of landscape of the industry, finding ways to like get your music out there. And so I've been thinking about that a lot. She taught herself how to DJ, how to play keys. And Harley's just one of those people, you should totally follow her if you want already, Harley Blue, because she's one of those really inspiring artists who just is constantly evolving. And I just really get inspired looking at her stuff. I've never actually told her this to her face. So Harley, if you're watching this, you're probably hearing me say this for the first time, but you're a G. I mean, I think you're a G, so keep being a G. Anyway, what is really uplifting and what I've been thinking about a lot since that gig in Cardiff has been about booking some solo headline shows. There were a couple of people in the Evergreens, and I went live on TikTok on Friday while I was waiting for my Uber Eats to arrive. And a couple of people were asking, when are you going to be performing live again? I'm going to be honest with you. I applied to around 30 festivals at the end of last year to play this summer. Didn't get a single one of them, not even a reply. Because they're so like hotly applied for, that's not like a failing of the festivals necessarily, but just kind of a indicator of how competitive it is to try and get a slot at a festival. And so I think part of me had kind of gone, oh, well, my next shows are probably going to be when I tour with the band to launch the album. But speaking to my friend James, who runs Grizzly Media, who actually provided the PA, the lights and the filming for the Undercover tour, the first independent tour that I did, he really hit home for me that you just need to gig. You just need to get out there and not overthink how it all slots together too much. And it's hard sometimes to let go of those old practices that you've been taught throughout your career. And it takes somebody to challenge you and go, why are you doing that? Where's that come from? For you to go, actually, I don't know why I'm doing that. Or actually, I know exactly why I'm doing that. And it's because of this thing that I got told 10 years ago that's probably not true anymore. And actually, I read a quote in Dr. Brené Brown's book, which, as you know, I'm rinsing a lot of Brené Brown at the moment. And I ended up putting it in the good book. In fact, I'll read it to you right now. This is in Strong Ground by Brené Brown on page 84. She says, success over time almost always dismantles the environment that created the success. Everything gets too predictable and comfortable. All organizations are susceptible to success inertia and most experience varying levels of it. Organizations that maintain a passionate connection with the people they serve and are able to resist the human tendency to slip into patterns that brought success but no longer serve are different only because they have leaders who understand and anticipate the pattern. It made me realize that when I put the Undercover Tour together, it wasn't because I knew that the Undercover Tour was going to work, and nor did the strategy to put the Undercover Tour together emerge because it was conceived as a whole thing at once. Initially, I wanted to do 1 or 2 intimate gigs in hidden spaces that I could curate, 2 very, very small spaces, book it in there, do it a bit like a So Far Sounds. I reached out to Hannah Marsland, who worked at Nottingham So Far at the time, and asked her for some advice on how I should approach putting together essentially what would be a So Far session, but just a headline show in a non-traditional space where I can bring in a PA and do it really strict. And she was so brilliant and we got on so well, and she understood the concept so deeply that I eventually spoke to her about coming on board and, for a small fee to actually help me put the thing together. And Hannah was the person who encouraged me to be even braver and branch out to do, I think we did 6 dates in the end across the country. And it's so good that we did that because it made me braver. Lower selling cities, Brighton and Bristol, when I returned back to them the following year, Bristol especially, which was a sold out show for the Jungle Child Tour, it was just an incredible experience. And same with going over to Scotland. It was like this person had come in when I was just venturing out to try something brand new and encouraged me to be even braver and break expectation even more so. And that made me even braver for the Jungle Child Tour. But here's the clincher. In approaching this tour this time, I've started to put in a lot of the same approach to try and repeat the pattern that I used for the previous tour. Try and keep what works and keep working the same way. But in both scenarios of those previous 2 tours, I wasn't repeating. I was approaching something with fresh eyes and with a fresh mindset. And I've been realizing this week that I have to do that this process of building the album, of building the next band tour, actually may have some smaller moments coming up to it that I've never done before. And some acoustic headlines might be the solution to that. Immediately, though, my brain goes to why that's hard or why that's difficult or why that would be challenging. And of course, my brain starts going, well, the logistics will be hard. The inner critic starts going, you think you can do these things, but you just can't, Nemo. And I love it because actually what I need is, this is the part of putting a tour together where you have to start thinking about the team. No man is an island. No human being can work on a big project entirely on their own very easily. And this is where I start thinking about, okay, who are the people who'd be perfect to help make this thing happen? And, just speaking to James this week has already been sort of a bit of a lighthouse to go, okay, here's the shoreline of what I'm trying to do. And so bringing them in, starting to think about who are the teams and who are the collaborators to bring in to make this thing a reality. What I started thinking about was, okay, so maybe I'm doing a headline solo tour, which would be really cool. But I don't have time to do that. And when will I put that in? And, I need to find like 2 consecutive weeks. And slowly I started to think, well, no, it doesn't have to be that. And I went back to a quote that was in the good book. As I say, in this book, I put in everything, anything, any piece of wisdom that comes, whether it's in books that I read or podcasts or films or voice notes that my friends send me. And one of my friends, Keaton, sent me a voice note that said, he sent it me on the 10th of September 2025. And he said, you don't need to make moments into monuments to make them matter. That's a bullet in it. That's a bullet. I'm going to read it again. You don't need to make moments into monuments to make them matter. Do you know what I mean? Book down, mic drop. Unbelievable. Like, oh my days. It just hit me. And I've forgotten about that quote. And I went into the book to write in some of this Brené Brown stuff and saw that quote by Keaton on the other side of the page. And that's the great thing about having a book full of quotes. I can't recommend it enough. That I'm totally guilty totally guilty of thinking what I have to do has to be the biggest, best, most unbelievably untouchable version of anything that's ever been done before. I am so guilty of that. And what I thought that was pursuing excellence. But actually, it's a form of perfectionism. It's actually a way to remain invisible, isn't it? It's a way to feed the critical voice in your head by trying to eliminate any possibility for judgment or insult. That if I am aiming the very highest I can and attaining 100% on the test, that nobody can critique it, because you can't critique someone who gets an A star. You can't critique somebody who gets gold, but somebody who gets silver, there's so much room for critique, isn't there? There's so much room for negative thinking to kick in. But actually, silver is really good, isn't it? You have to be at a really high level to deliver silver. And delivering silver is better than delivering absolutely nothing, because you're too scared to even try, just in case you don't get gold. But also that it's not a competition. You're not in competition. You're not fighting anybody. This is not war. This is the work of your life. And that's something that I've been thinking about a lot. And landing on Keaton's quote, Big Love Keaton, was it sort of tied all these thoughts together, that actually I can just book some solo headline shows and just trial them out. Just do them. I know that it will give me so much energy to see people on the road while I'm building this much bigger tour and building the launch. And it will only hopefully enhance and increase the number of people who'd be excited to come and see the band on tour. It is essential. And really the big question, what are you waiting for? What sign are you looking for to say, this is a good idea, go for it? And actually, when I thought about that, I realized I've had all the signs. Doing the Cardiff show and having such a wonderful response, just me on stage with the guitar. What I will say as well, and this is true, and I know this to be true of many artists like me, having a band on stage is also a little bit of a way of being invisible. Even though you think, well, no, surely you're the most exposed you can be, you're on stage. It is a little bit of hiding. It's a little bit of, having a great time on stage and leaning on some wonderful musicians and wonderful collaborators, but also because they're great. I stand on stage with people like Tina and Tamila and Craig and Ryan and Cameron, who did the Jungle Child tour. And I'm looking at them going, there's no question, they're incredible, right? I stand on stage with Cassell the Beatmaker and, all the ITM band. And I'm like, no question about it. They're amazing. And when you're stood with great people, you feel great and it encourages you to be your best as well. And when you have that a lot, it can be tempting. The critic can slip in and go, you're only great because you're with these people. I'm referencing the critic a lot because I wasn't in the studio this week or last week. And whenever, I haven't been able to just consistently work on something, as I've said, the critic has my number. They know exactly when to come for me. And when they come for me whenever I have not basically been working back to back on my own music, when I've been doing other projects or working on other stuff that I love. And I'm going to be in the studio this week with Tom, once again, working on Don't Look Down. I'm also working remotely at the moment because Cassell the Beatmaker is on tour with the Streets, playing drums for the Streets. So we're working on some of the album music remotely over the next couple of weeks. Again, it's the little bits of work and focus, coming back to work in sort of a more loose way, feel a little bit sporadic and less serious, or like you're not being consistent. But actually it's the nature of the work, is that you do it when you can and when everyone's available, and you have to fit it into the schedule. And actually it's about staying motivated during the sort of long timelines. And I think I'm realizing that I just know how much energy seeing people in the shows and being able to perform the songs and actually trial some of this music that's being put on the album with an audience feels like. So I guess I'm saying this to pour concrete on it that I'm going to be booking some solo headlines. Let me know if there's anywhere you think I should go or anywhere you've seen me before that you're like, oh, you haven't been back here for a while. Some people on the last podcast sent some great recommendations for local venues and stuff. Newcastle, Manchester, Liverpool, Brighton came up a few times. So yeah, anywhere you think I should go, let me know and I'll start booking them and getting them announced, which feels exciting just to say. So yeah, it'll be good. Thank you for riding with me all the way up to this episode, for your comments and for the messages, especially in the Evergreens channel that is now on Instagram. That's been really cool to be able to share like clips from the studio and voice notes and stuff and jump on lives and things like that. If you want to join it, just head over to Instagram. It's ROB.GREEN Music on Instagram and the channel's there in the link. It'd be great to have you part of the team and have the support, and the connection has just been amazing. Definitely let me know about venues or any places or cities you'd like to see me in. I'll put a poll in there as well. So yeah, let me know if you see it where I should go. I hope you have a great week. I might be back next week. Hopefully, we'll see. And in the meantime, look after yourself. See you next time.